Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montevilla Sewing Center, and today we're talking about the Janome 8002D Serger. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a rolled hem on this machine. Now here's an example of a rolled hem. I've actually, on this piece of fabric, I actually wrote down my settings. But the rolled hem rolls the edge of the fabric so it's actually right in there, and it makes it so that it's a nice, smooth, finished edge. It's lovely for doing napkins or ruffles, things like that. Okay, so to start out with, we want to take out our left-hand needle, which I've already done. And once you take out that needle, make sure you tighten up the set screw there, because the set screw, if you leave it loose, in the vibration that happens in sewing, that set screw could rattle loose and get lost on the floor. You don't want that happening. So just tighten that up, and then remember to loosen it again when you put the needle back in. Also, I've taken out the thread out of that pathway, so it's out of the way. Okay, the next thing we need to do is this little knob here. It says S for serging right there and R for rolled hem right there. So in order to move that, we need to first disengage the upper knife, and then you can push in the lower blade. When you push this on a spring here, this knob, it moves the lower blade out of the way. Now if you look right here, you can see that stitch finger is moving back out of the way. What that's going to do is cause the rolled hem effect to happen, so that stitch finger is not there to form stitches like you have when you're doing a 4-thread seam, and so it just moves it back out of the way. And then you want to re-engage your cutter knife. When you're doing a rolled hem, it's best to use the knife blade, because that way you'll get a nice even edge. Also, what you want to do, I should show you this here, and I've already done it, but you want to widen your stitch width. Now, the best way to widen your stitch width is to have your cutter blade out of the way, and that way it makes it much easier. If you look really carefully right there, you can see the cutter blade. For a regular serging, you want the lower blade right about the middle of the blade, right even with that that last most right-hand line. But for rolled hem, let's move it all the way out to max right there. Okay, re-engage the knife. And then next we want to have the stitch length over here on R. So the little dot, right, even with R. Okay, differential feed, just leave that right where it is. You're not going to change that at all. And then we want the upper looper here at 3. That's the same way as you'd have it on normal sewing. But the lower looper, we need to tighten that right up, about 8.5. Now once you move the knobs, make sure that you tighten your thread so that it sinks right into those tension discs. I always just go through all of them just to make sure. Okay, cutting width at widest. Looks like we're ready to go. So, when you do a rolled hem, you want to do it on fairly thin fabric. Quilting cotton is good, but nothing heavier than that, because the denim is too stiff to actually have that edge, that finely rolled edge roll. But it really works nicely on thinner fabrics like linings or like I say, quilting cotton is good too. Okay. So lift that up, put that right up to the cutter, and you can cut off an even distance. It can be like 1/4 of an inch or even less. This does take a little practice, so give yourself a little bit more to cut off to start with once you get it, once you're learning to do it. Then I always like to hold on to that thread tail. The thing is about the thread tail, once you start doing the rolled hem, the stitches are so close together that that thread tail kind of tends to curl around, kind of like a little pigtail. And you don't want that curling around and getting caught in your stitches, so just kind of hang on to it until it's made maybe 1/2 inch of rolled hem into your fabric. Now you can already see that it's making a nice rolled edge. I can make those closer together if I want to by making this a little bit less. And of course, you can use the same color of fabric as thread. I'm just using the different colors so you can see what's happening with the stitching. Now, if you were going to make a napkin, like going across this corner and across this corner, it doesn't work really well to pull your thread tails through here since there's not much room right there. So the best way to do that is use a product called fray check, and you would leave the thread tails, put your fray check on there, and then let it dry, and once it's dried, then trim it nice and close. So the fray check basically makes everything all one so that the threads will not ravel at that point. Okay, so this is how to make a rolled hem using standard thread. You can also use MyLock stretch. Now this thread, so you can see as you stretch it, it kind of gets thinner, but as it relaxes, it's wider like that. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And you would use it on your upper looper. To show you what I'm talking about is this pink thread here. It's this one right here, upper looper. If you're not sure, that's this one right here. So you go right up there, that's the one. See, on this here, it's the upper looper that's wrapping the edge. So that's the one we want to replace. We'll do the tie-off method, where we don't have to thread anything. I'm going to just do a single overhand knot. In our threading video, I talk about how to change all of your threads using the tie-off method. Single overhand knot like this. Check it on both sides. Now, because this has to pull all the way through, it really works best if you snip your needle thread. We're going to have to rethread the needle thread. That's okay. It's only one thread to thread. And then start pulling this through. You need to kind of pull both of them through. Once you get a hold of the, see, there's no thread tail here. That's because I snipped the needle thread. So now I'm going to just pull the pink thread. I'm going to leave the green one alone. There comes the knot. As it gets into the tension disc, kind of help it along to get through there, and quick change, all done. Rethread the needle. Does help sometimes to have that presser foot down so you can get your needle threaded, and looking at it at an angle also helps. Now I've got my machine on for safety purposes. You might want to turn your machine off when you're working this close to the needle, but I like to have plenty of light here, so just be careful, keep your foot away from the foot control. Then we're going to put this under the foot, between the cutter and the foot is how you do it. You don't want to have it past the cutter, or else the cutter will cut it off, and then it won't incorporate into the tail very well. So you can see all three threads are underneath the foot. Before we get started, again, yank on that a little bit because a knot went through there and that might have moved it out of there, so we want to make sure it's seated well into the tension discs. And then give it a few stitches so it starts making that nice thread tail. Okay, so now we're going to, same settings, everything's the same. We may want to go back to R for rolled hem right here, because remember this thread is going to fill in the stitch a little bit better. Again, as with most projects, you want to stitch it out on a sample of the fabric with the settings that you're choosing to make sure you have the settings to make it look like the way you want it to be. And that filled it in really nicely. In fact, I could probably move that down. That's the stitch length that I moved. Now, I'm not pushing or pulling the fabric. All I'm doing is guiding it. The main thing I want to do is make sure I have cutting off a consistent distance of fabric here. So that's basically where I'm watching right here. And once you get to the end, don't pull your fabric through. Get so that it's right there so you can hang onto the thread tail. Then pull it through. The reason for that is if you have fabric that's a little bit stretchy, you don't want to stretch this out. Okay. That makes a nice rolled hem. Now, if you look really careful, it looks a little bit puckered here. All you got to do is pull it, and the stitches sink down into the fabric, and you've got a nice, flat, beautiful rolled hem. That's rolled hem on the Janome 8002D. I hope you found this helpful, and if you did, give us a thumbs up. And if you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the area down below. We have other videos on this machine and on other machines on our YouTube channel, so stay tuned. Happy sewing. See you later. Bye.